The Imperium possesses weapons capable of killing cities, armies, and even entire worlds. But few are as horrifying as the Life-Eater virus, a biological weapon created for one purpose: to turn every living organism on a planet into fuel for its own destruction. A Life-Eater attack does not begin with a single explosion. Virus bombs are released across the target world, spreading an engineered contagion through cities, forests, oceans, and military strongholds. Sealed bunkers may offer temporary protection, but anything exposed to the atmosphere becomes vulnerable. Soldiers, civilians, animals, vegetation, and microscopic life are attacked by the same weapon. The virus breaks organic matter down with unnatural speed. Bodies collapse into rotting biological waste. Forests become fields of decaying material. Entire ecosystems die within hours, producing an atmosphere saturated with toxic and highly combustible gases. The weapon does not distinguish between enemy troops and the world they are standing on. Once the planetary surface has been reduced to a mass of decay, the atmosphere can be ignited. The resulting firestorm burns across continents, consuming the gases released by billions of dead organisms. What remains is not a conquered planet, it is a poisoned desert where almost nothing can survive. The Life-Eater virus became infamous during the Horus Heresy. On Istvan III, virus bombs were used against loyalist space marines marked for death by their own traitorous brothers. The attack devastated the surface, killing loyal warriors alongside the civilian population, and revealing that the traitor legions were prepared to sacrifice entire worlds to begin their rebellion. Talon suffered a similar fate when the Iron Warriors bombarded the agri-world with viral weapons. A planet once capable of feeding imperial populations became a toxic wasteland. Survivors were forced to fight from sealed vehicles because exposure to the environment itself could be fatal. The Imperium still retains viral weapons, but their use is restricted to the most extreme circumstances. They cannot be deployed like ordinary bombs. A damaged containment system, an incorrect atmospheric calculation, or an unexpected biological reaction could threaten the fleet that launched them. Even victory leaves behind a world that may remain unusable for generations. There is also a deeper reason the weapon is feared. The Imperium claims to fight for humanity, yet the Life-Eater virus destroys everything humanity might have saved. Cities, resources, history, and entire populations vanish together. It is not a weapon of conquest because there is nothing left to rule afterward. When imperial authorities authorize the Life-Eater virus, they are admitting that the planet is already considered lost. The enemy is not being defeated. The battlefield itself is being executed. If the Life-Eater virus is a weapon that kills the body of a world, then a Vortex weapon is something even worse. It does not simply destroy matter. It tears reality open and allows the warp itself to swallow whatever stands in its path. A vortex warhead, shell, grenade, or missile creates a temporary rift between real space and the immaterium. The moment it detonates, a screaming hole in reality opens at the point of impact. Tanks vanish, fortresses disappear. Flesh, armor, stone, and steel are dragged into an abyss that obeys no natural law. Nothing is burned. Nothing is blasted apart in the ordinary sense. It is simply taken. That alone would make vortex weapons terrifying. But the real danger is that they cannot always be controlled. The warp is not a stable force. A vortex blast can drift, expand, collapse unpredictably, or move across the battlefield like a hungry wound in space. A weapon aimed at the enemy can suddenly turn toward the soldiers who launched it. A perfect shot can become a catastrophe for both sides within seconds. This is why the Imperium treats such weapons with extreme caution. They are among the rarest and most dangerous tools in the Imperial arsenal, usually reserved for the most desperate situations. Titan legions, certain inquisitors, and the highest levels of military command may authorize their use, but even then the decision is never casual. Once a vortex weapon is fired, nobody can be fully certain what will happen next. The horror of the weapon is not just physical destruction. A vortex breach brings the warp close, and the warp is never empty. It is a realm of madness, corruption, and demonic power. Even if the rift closes quickly, the aftermath can leave behind panic, psychic disturbance, and the sense that reality itself has been violated. For ordinary Imperial soldiers, seeing a vortex detonation is not just witnessing a superweapon, it is watching the universe break open. In some battles, that risk is accepted because the alternative is even worse. A demon engine too powerful to stop, a fortress that cannot be breached, or a Xenos horror too dangerous to let survive may force commanders to unleash one. But every use carries the same hidden price. You are not just firing at the enemy, you are gambling with a force humanity was never meant to command. That is why Vortex Weapons are feared even inside the Imperium. They are powerful enough to erase almost any target, but they do so by touching the one thing no sane commander ever wants to invite onto the battlefield: the warp itself. The Imperium may possess them, but it can never truly trust them. Some Imperial weapons are designed to defeat armies, others are built to destroy cities. Cyclonic torpedoes exist for a far darker purpose: the complete execution of a planet. These enormous warheads are among the primary weapons used during Exterminatus, the final sentence passed upon a world judged beyond recovery. They are not deployed to capture territory or force an enemy to surrender. Once the order is given, the Imperium has already accepted that every soldier, civilian, resource, and structure on the surface may be sacrificed. A cyclonic torpedo penetrates deep into a planet before releasing its destructive force. Depending on the type used, the detonation can trigger catastrophic geological damage, ignite the atmosphere, or destabilize the world's crust. Continents fracture, oceans boil away. Cities vanish beneath fire, earthquakes, and molten stone. The most terrifying versions are two-stage cyclonic torpedoes. The first stage creates a path through the surface and drives the second warhead toward the planetary core. When the final charge detonates, the damage spreads outward from inside the world itself. Tectonic plates collapse, the crust tears open, and the planet can be reduced to a broken mass of burning debris. Unlike the Life Eater virus, this weapon does not require a functioning ecosystem. A dead tomb world, a demon-infested fortress, or a barren planet hiding an enemy beneath its surface can still be destroyed. There is no need to invade underground complexes, breach every bunker, or hunt the final survivors. The Imperium simply destroys the ground around them. That power makes cyclonic torpedoes valuable against threats that cannot be contained. Tyrannid infestations, uncontrollable demonic corruption, Xenos awakening sites, and worlds completely consumed by rebellion may all be considered targets. Inquisitor Cryptmen became infamous for ordering exterminatus on entire worlds in the path of the Tyrannids, sacrificing their populations to deny the Hive Fleet's fresh biomass. But the weapon carries an obvious danger. If intelligence is wrong, billions can die for nothing. A population that could have been rescued is erased. Ancient technology, strategic resources, and irreplaceable infrastructure disappear in minutes. There is no way to reverse the decision once the torpedo has been launched. Access to these weapons is heavily restricted, although Space Marine chapters and other powerful Imperial organizations may possess Exterminatus-class arsenals. Their existence means that a single commander, acting under sufficient authority, can condemn an entire world without sending an army to its surface. The Imperium fears cyclonic torpedoes because they make destruction too simple. A planet that required thousands of years to populate can be erased by one command, one launch, and one warhead descending through the atmosphere. They are not merely weapons of war. They are proof that the Imperium would rather destroy one of its own worlds than risk allowing an enemy to keep it. Phosphex is one of the rare Imperial weapons so horrific that even many of the warriors who carried it regarded its use as an act of desperation. It is a corrosive, toxic incendiary compound designed not merely to burn a target, but to pursue life across the battlefield until almost nothing remains. When a Phosphex bomb or artillery shell ruptures, the substance expands into a pale, seething fire. Unlike ordinary flame, it does not need a reliable fuel source and is exceptionally difficult to extinguish. It clings to armor, eats into living tissue, and leaves the ground permanently poisoned. Imperial records describe Phosphex as a weapon capable of tainting the land more severely than conventional radiation. The most terrifying feature is the way the fire appears to react to movement. Soldiers trying to escape can draw the burning mass toward themselves. Running from it may only make the flames spread faster in their direction. A battlefield struck by Phosphex becomes a trap where staying still means burning, and moving may attract even more of the weapon. During the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy, Phosphex was deployed through grenades, bombs, siege shells, and specialized launchers. Destroyer units and heavy war machines carried it when commanders wanted an enemy position erased rather than captured. Official Horus Heresy material describes Phosphex bombs and radiation weapons as tools once used to scour life from entire worlds. Its effectiveness came with a terrible strategic cost. A fortress taken with Phosphex might remain unusable. A city could be cleared of defenders but left filled with toxic residue. Agricultural land, water sources, and future settlements could all be destroyed by the same attack that achieved victory. The Imperium could win the battle and still lose everything worth protecting. Phosphex was also dangerous to its own users. A damaged shell, incorrect launch, or shifting battlefield could send the burning compound back toward friendly positions. Once released, it could not be recalled or redirected. Even heavily armored warriors had little reason to trust a substance capable of eating through military-grade protection. By the 41st millennium, true Phosphex weapons had become extremely rare. The knowledge required to manufacture them was lost after the destruction of the surviving production data, leaving only ancient stockpiles and relic weapons in Imperial hands. That scarcity may be one of the few mercies in the Imperium's arsenal. Phosphex does not simply kill the enemy. It destroys the battlefield, poisons the victory, and leaves behind a wound that can outlast everyone who ordered the attack. The Imperium often speaks of radiation as if it were just another form of ammunition. To the forces of the Adeptus Mechanicus, it can be shaped into rifles, grenades, warheads, and cleansing engines designed to poison entire battlefields. These are known collectively as Rad Weapons, and their purpose is not simply to kill the enemy. They make survival itself impossible. A conventional projectile destroys the body at the point of impact. A Rad weapon attacks everything around it. Invisible energy tears through armor, damages organs, corrupts cells, and contaminates the ground beneath the target. Soldiers who appear unharmed after the battle may begin dying hours later as their bodies collapse from within. The most common Rad weapons are carried by specialized Mechanicus troops, particularly units expected to fight in environments already considered expendable. Radium carbines fire irradiated ammunition that floods the target with lethal contamination. Rad grenades weaken entire groups before an assault. Larger devices can turn bunkers, trenches, and industrial districts into zones where unprotected life cannot remain for long. The danger does not end when the enemy is dead. Radiation remains inside ruined buildings, soil, water, and damaged machines. A position captured with Rad weapons may be too contaminated for Imperial soldiers to occupy. Medical crews attempting to recover survivors can receive fatal exposure. Even armored vehicles can carry radioactive dust back into friendly camps. Some Mechanicus formations accept these consequences because their commanders no longer think like ordinary humans. Skitari may be considered replaceable. Their bodies can be shielded, repaired, or abandoned when the contamination becomes too severe. Entire populations can be sacrificed if the destruction preserves valuable technology or prevents it from falling into enemy hands. For regular Imperial armies, Rad weapons are far harder to justify. A commander may defeat an enemy regiment only to discover that his own troops cannot cross the battlefield. A city can be liberated but left uninhabitable. Factories, food supplies, and water systems may survive the fighting, yet become useless because everything inside them has been poisoned. The weapons also threaten those carrying them. Damaged containment units, cracked ammunition chambers, or prolonged exposure can slowly kill the operators. Some Mechanicus warriors are so saturated with radiation that merely standing near them is dangerous to unprotected humans. They become living weapons surrounded by an invisible field of sickness. Rad Weapons reveal the cold logic at the heart of the Imperium. They are used when victory matters more than the people, the territory, or the future of the world being defended. The enemy may die first, but radiation does not understand loyalty. Once released, it attacks traitor and servant of the Emperor alike, leaving behind a battlefield where the Imperium has won, and where nothing living is safe. A conversion beamer is one of the strangest weapons ever preserved by the Imperium. It does not rely on explosive shells, plasma, or conventional ammunition. Instead, it fires an energy beam that transforms the matter inside its target into raw energy, causing armor, machinery, and living tissue to destroy themselves from within. The denser the target, the more devastating the reaction becomes. A lightly protected soldier may be torn apart, but a tank, fortress wall, or heavily armored war engine contains far more matter for the weapon to convert. The very protection designed to keep the target alive becomes fuel for the explosion. Conversion beamers also behave differently from ordinary firearms because their destructive power increases across distance. The beam requires space to build toward its most violent state. At close range, it may be less effective than expected. At long range, the same shot can strike with enough force to rupture powerful vehicles and fortified positions. This creates an unusual danger for the operator. To use the weapon properly, the firer must maintain distance, calculate the exact range, and remain exposed long enough to acquire a stable target. A mistake in positioning can waste the shot. A mistake in aiming can convert part of a friendly structure, vehicle, or defensive line into an explosion. The largest conversion beam weapons are mounted on Titans and ancient war machines. These massive versions can destroy enemy engines from extreme range, but the energy required places enormous strain on their plasma reactors. Official descriptions of Titan-scale conversion beamers note that their overwhelming power comes at the cost of severe reactor stress. That makes every shot a calculated risk. A Titan already operating under battle damage may push its reactor beyond safe limits. Cooling systems can fail, power networks can overload. The weapon, intended to destroy an enemy god engine, may cripple the machine carrying it before a second shot is fired. The technology is also ancient and poorly understood. Many surviving conversion beamers are relics maintained through ritual rather than complete scientific knowledge. Replacement parts may no longer exist, and the technicians responsible for repairing them may know how to repeat sacred procedures without truly understanding why the weapon functions. For the Adeptus Mechanicus, this makes every surviving device both a weapon and an irreplaceable artifact. Using one risks destroying technology that the Imperium may never be able to rebuild. Refusing to use it, however, may allow an enemy Titan or fortress to survive. Conversion beamers are feared because they turn strength into vulnerability. The thicker the armor and the larger the machine, the more violently the target can be destroyed. But the same unstable power threatens the operator, the reactor, and one of the Imperium's rarest surviving technologies. Every time a conversion beamer fires, the Imperium gambles an ancient miracle against the possibility that the weapon will consume far more than its intended target. A Nova cannon is not simply a larger naval gun. It is a weapon powerful enough to turn a section of space into a killing zone, destroying warships that may never even see the vessel that fired it. Mounted in the prow of massive Imperial cruisers and battleships, the weapon uses gravimetric systems to accelerate an enormous projectile to an extreme velocity. The shot crosses vast distances before detonating among the enemy fleet. A direct impact can tear through a capital ship, while the resulting blast can cripple or destroy several smaller vessels at once. The danger begins before the shell reaches its target. The recoil is so immense that only the largest ships can survive firing the weapon. Their engines and structural systems must compensate for the force, and even then, the entire vessel can suffer under the strain. One Space Marine battle barge, modified to carry a Nova cannon, experienced a temporary loss of power throughout the ship each time the weapon fired. That moment of weakness can be fatal. Shields may fluctuate, weapons can lose power, life support systems can fail in damaged sections. An enemy commander who survives the first shot may use the delay to close the distance and attack before the Nova cannon is ready again. Accuracy is another problem. Naval warfare takes place across distances so enormous that even a minor targeting error can send the projectile far from its intended destination. A shell aimed at an enemy formation may detonate near Allied escorts, transport ships, or populated orbital stations. At such speeds, there is no way to correct the shot once it has been fired. Some patterns make the risk even greater. The Ryza pattern Nova cannon launches an unstable plasma-based macro bomb instead of a conventional explosive shell. If such ammunition is damaged, mishandled, or struck before launch, the ship carrying it may be destroyed by its own weapon. Nova cannons also consume enormous resources. Their ammunition is rare, their firing systems require constant maintenance, and damage to the weapon can leave a capital ship carrying a useless mass of machinery through the rest of a campaign. The Imperium cannot replace these systems easily, which means every firing decision risks both the target and an irreplaceable warship. Yet commanders still use them, because few Imperial weapons can break an enemy fleet from such extreme range. A single successful shot can destroy escorts, scatter formations, and cripple a larger vessel before conventional batteries are close enough to fire. The Nova cannon is feared because its power is never contained to one target. It threatens the enemy fleet, the surrounding battlefield, and the ship that carries it. When it fires, the Imperium is not merely launching a shell. It is placing an entire capital ship behind a weapon whose recoil can darken its decks, and whose failure could turn the vessel into the first casualty of its own attack. A Blackstone Fortress is not merely a space station. It is an ancient star citadel large enough to dominate entire systems and powerful enough to change the outcome of wars involving thousands of ships. The Imperium has discovered several of these structures, but it has never truly understood who created them, how their deepest systems function, or what they were originally designed to destroy. Official Imperial records once classified them as ancient fortresses. In reality, they are weapons on a scale humanity can barely comprehend. Each fortress is built from Blackstone, an unnatural material capable of interacting with the warp. Depending on how it is manipulated, Blackstone can suppress psychic energy or strengthen it. That makes the structure more dangerous than a conventional battle station. Its systems may be able to resist demonic influence, amplify warp power, or unleash forces that Imperial science cannot reliably predict. A single Blackstone fortress carries weaponry capable of turning the tide of an apocalyptic fleet battle. Multiple fortresses operating together become even more terrifying. During the Gothic War, Abaddon the Despoiler gained control of several and demonstrated that their combined power could destroy entire stars. A weapon capable of annihilating a sun does not merely kill one planet, it can erase every world, fleet, station, and population dependent on that system. The Imperium once possessed dormant Blackstone fortresses, but possession did not mean control. Imperial crews could occupy their chambers and use portions of their systems, yet much of the machinery remained silent or incomprehensible. The structures seemed less like obedient ships and more like sleeping entities allowing humans to stand inside them. That uncertainty makes them almost impossible to trust. Activating the wrong mechanism could awaken defensive systems, redirect the fortress, or unleash power against nearby Imperial worlds. Even exploring one is deadly. The internal chambers can shift, ancient guardians patrol sealed areas, and forgotten vaults contain technology belonging to civilizations older than mankind. The greatest danger is capture. A conventional battleship can be destroyed before an enemy uses it. A Blackstone fortress is far harder to eliminate and far more valuable. If Chaos forces seize one, they gain not only an enormous warship, but a weapon capable of interacting directly with the warp. Attempts to control these structures through demonic possession have also left at least one fortress dangerously unstable, proving that even Chaos cannot command them without consequences. For the Imperium, using a Blackstone Fortress would mean placing entire sectors at the mercy of technology it cannot repair, reproduce, or fully operate. A successful activation might destroy an enemy fleet. A failure could destroy the system the Imperium intended to save. Blackstone Fortresses are feared because their true limits remain unknown. Humanity has witnessed them devastate fleets and threaten stars. Yet those abilities may represent only a fraction of their original purpose. The Imperium does not command these ancient weapons. It merely hopes that when they awaken, they are pointing toward the enemy.